Hello everyone, my name is John, I'm the Geeky Fanboy, and welcome back to Baker Street Reviews, the series where I watch all kinds of weird and sometimes interesting Sherlock Holmes adaptations to judge how much I like them as a huge Sherlock Holmes fan. Uh, and this time, because it is June and June is Pride Month, I decided to go for a film that more or less goes with how gay can we make Sherlock Holmes. So today we're watching The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. So I have seen this film before, however, it's been like at least 6 years since I've seen it last, so there are going to be a whole bunch of things I probably don't remember about this film. And I chose this because, for multiple reasons, this is one of the main influences for the BBC series, actually. So Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat cited this as one of their major inspirations for their show, which is why I initially watched it back in the day. And I can see why, and you will probably also be able to see why when we go into the viewing montage. And like I already mentioned, this is a movie that tries to sort of go with Sherlock Holmes is maybe gay in this. It's more or less vague. You will see why. But I know that a bunch of people like to cite this film as, this is the film where Sherlock Holmes is gay. I know that I think in the initial idea when they made this movie was that they wanted to make it more obvious and more clearer that Sherlock was actually meant to be gay in this, but they didn't really run with it. But you still get some moments here and there. So, The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes, if I look at my not Wikipedia page, is a 1970 film which was written and produced by Billy Wilder and IAL Diamond. And the film stars Robert Stevens as Sherlock Holmes and Colin Blakely as Dr. Watson. I don't think I've seen these two actors in anything else other than this movie. I know that Robert Stevens back in the day was quite a well-regarded, prestigious actor. And I remember liking him. We will see if I remember this correctly. And I don't know much about Colin Blakely either. I'm sorry about that. But my memories of this film is that I think it's more on the humorous side of like Sherlock Holmes mysteries. It tries to go for sort of classic Sherlock Holmes mystery investigation things. That it is kind of episodic as well. So you will realize that this movie has two storylines. The first one only lasts for a couple of minutes, and then we get the major, bigger storyline in the second half of the film. And I think the movie was meant to be even more episodic when they tried to like work it out how they want to do this film, but it only ended up being having those two storylines, which makes the storytelling a little bit weird, because you start off with this one storyline that is completely disconnected from what happens in the second half of the movie, and this first storyline only lasts for about, I don't even know, like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then the rest of the film is this other big storyline. So there's a bit of a disconnect here, but this first storyline, if I remember correctly, is the one that has the more specific codification of Sherlock being gay. But you will see that as we go into it. So I don't even want to say that much more. I do have a positive memory of this film. I remember liking it. I remember thinking that it was unusual but funny, and I think Christopher Lee, even now that I'm thinking about it, is in it as well. Let me check. I think Christopher Lee plays Mycroft, if I remember correctly. We're also going to get a cameo of Queen Victoria, and yeah. So I do remember the film vaguely, and I think it's interesting coming back to it, to sort of see how obvious, quote unquote, the queer coding actually is in this film. And I think it's also interesting to come back to it, watching it as a huge fan of the BBC show, and sort of seeing maybe where Mark Gatiss and Stephen Warwick got some of their inspiration from. But yeah, that's enough introduction and enough talk. Let's go and watch the movie together.
Ooh, here we go.
I have decided to withhold from the public until this.
Yeah, here we go. Classic adaptation premise. Because it basically excuses everything that's happening. That you can just come up with something new entirely.
Oh, come now, Watson, you must admit you have a tendency to over-romanticize.
Yeah.
Take nice simple exercises in logic and embellished them, embroidered them, exaggerated them.
I deny the accusation.
You've described me as 6'4", whereas I'm barely 6'1".
I love it when adaptations get into these kinds of conversation where it's like, you know, Watson writes these stories but he completely exaggerates. I love it when films do that, because I think there definitely is a tendency there, because I don't think Holmes entirely approves of how Watson writes these stories, which is why he sort of points out in, I think, in one of the stories he tells himself, I'm not quite sure if it's the Lion's Mane or the other one, but I like when they sort of go into that, like this detail. You say I'm 6 foot and I'm actually just 5 foot something. I don't know, I just kind of like it when they do that, because it very interestingly sort of balances on this line between the quote-unquote real and the fiction, since Watson, in the world of Sherlock Holmes, is the author writing these stories.
Actually, I don't dislike women. I merely distrust them.
Well,
The twinkle in the eye and the arsenic in the soup.
It's those little touches that make you colourful.
Lurid is more like...
so Watson was like, let's make my best friend look like an absolute sexist pig, because that's an interesting character trait. But again, I kind of like it because it deconstructs the Sherlock Holmes character and the mythos surrounding him, even within the world of Sherlock Holmes, and I like it. I think it's a very interesting approach. I think this is such a nice little moment, because this is what I imagine so many days at Baker Street are just like. Watson sitting there doing his writing work, Sherlock's playing the violin, doing some experimental stuff. And then you get to switch to this kind of stuff with the drugs. Which is exactly how I imagine day-to-day life is like for these two.
Aren't you ashamed of yourself?
Thoroughly. But this will take care of it.
Oh. This is kind of dark and, in a way, personally very relatable. This movie is off to such a strong start, I think. We're only 11 minutes in, but I think there's so many nice little details. And I love how the movie in these sort of introductory minutes takes its time to show us what life is like for Holmes and Watson. Just, you know, casual little things, Holmes playing the violin, Holmes just getting up and taking drugs, Watson disapproving of it. I just like it. It's nice, because I think we don't get that too often. An adaptation just sort of sits the audience down and shows us this is what Holmes and Watson are like outside of working a case.
We must have father, because without father, how could there be child?
I see. The whole thing is still in the planning.
Oh, they want Holmes to
Madame would like
make a
child
baby.
to be brilliant and beautiful.
Oh, I find her most attractive. For a woman, that is.
Here we
No
go.
problem.
Here we go.
Maybe
Wow.
bachelor, living with another bachelor for the last 5 years.
Here we go.
5 very happy years.
Oh, he's pretending Watson is his lover.
You mean you and Dr. Watson?
What's interesting about this is how you could absolutely take this for granted that Holmes is really saying, I can't do this because I'm gay and Watson's my boyfriend, which is why we can't do this. But at the same time, it's also sort of a vague, because he doesn't come up with the idea until he sees Watson and has heard about Tchaikovsky. It's like, yeah, let's come up with this as an excuse. I don't know if they're diving into the queer connotations more as the film goes on. But I like that they, at the same time, directly say to your face, and at the same time, don't. So you sort of left with it to make your own choice, whether or not you think, yeah, this is them saying Holmes is gay.
Mr. Holmes told us everything. About you and him.
About me and him?
Oh god.
Now, no need to be bashful.
What do you have to say for yourself?
Well, don't just sit there! Speak up, man!
You know, I think this kind of shows that Watson, in this case, is the one who has a super fragile ego and needs to put himself out there and impress people, all that sort of stuff. Which, like, they're not directly saying that he's stupid or anything like that, but I don't know, I kind of like how they're playing with how much of what Watson is writing is himself, what is actually Holmes. I don't know, I kind of like how they play with that.
This is funny, but we're both in the same boat. We must take desperate
I don't think Holmes has a problem with it.
stop this talk. Maybe if we got married.
Then they'd really talk.
And you can get women to vouch for you too, can't you, Holmes?
Oh, here we go. Can he?
Good night, Watson.
Oh!
Holmes,
Outright avoiding it!
let me ask you a question. I hope I'm not being presumptuous, but there have been women in your life.
The answer is yes. You're being presumptuous.
Oh!
Holmes,
This is amazing, I think, because, again, they leave it open. You think, up to this point, you can think, okay, he just made a joke to get out of the situation. But then you get this conversation with Watson, his best friend, who outright just asks him. And you would think Holmes is okay having this conversation, but he clearly is not okay having this conversation in that moment. And he just outright avoids saying if he's ever had any kind of romantic or sexual experience with women. And which clearly reads as, okay, so if he doesn't want to say, he probably hasn't had any experience, which means he might actually be gay. This could be read in so many ways, but I kind of like how the movie plays with this. Where it sort of goes from comedic to overly dramatic, exaggerated, and then you get this more personal, intimate level when Watson asks the question. And you can tell, oh, there's something in Holmes' past that he doesn't want to talk about. Maybe it's because he is actually gay and doesn't have any experience with women. Or he did have an experience with one woman, but it went really, really bad. We don't know. So I like how the movie keeps it open.
maybe Mrs. Hudson is entertaining.
I never found her so.
Holmes has some really good one-liners in this.
Look at this. She's had a nasty blow in the head. So it would appear that she was the victim of a deliberate attack. Get my bag, will you?
Yes, Watson gets to be a doctor.
When did you arrive from Brussels? Where are you staying?
I don't know.
What happened? at the
Holmes! Keep it cool, be more considerate.
Parfait! Concentrez-vous! Watson, this is a very small flat. We don't want to clutter it up with women.
Holmes, we've never had a case like this. A woman comes to us with a problem.
Oh, the lady is full on naked.
Emile.
Lady, put on some clothes, maybe. Holmes.
Where is your luggage?
I don't know.
I don't like how she's coming on to.
What does it all mean, Mr. Holmes? Where's my husband? You must help me find him.
We'll do our best, I assure you.
I feel there's more to this than just a missing husband.
Madame Valadon.
There's some mystery surrounding this
I want you
woman.
to send one more
It is addressed to you.
to me.
Ooh.
My dear Sherlock, I expect you and Dr. Watson to join
It's
me
from
at the club
Mycroft.
immediately upon receipt of this note.
Come in. Come in, Sherlock. Dr. Watson.
Yes. Mycroft.
Looking very fit, both of you.
Again,
Thank you.
Not
Mycroft, how's your going?
big. Why do adaptations? I believe there's so many great Mycrofts out there, but I think there's so many adaptations also get that Mycroft is supposed to be like a big gentleman. This is, for example, what I really like about Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows, where they cast Stephen Fry, because I think Stephen Fry was perfect in that part. He's a bit bigger, but it's very smart and eloquent, and I think that's perfect for Mycroft. Just, people, come on, stop going for skinny guys. Let Mycroft be a big boy.
By whose authority?
By the authority of Her Majesty's government, I hope I have made myself...
Okay, so we have a government conspiracy on our hand. Perfect. Because why not?
Now, if you'll excuse me,
Thank you.
What is she doing? Oh my god, she's sending Morse code. Can you even do that with an umbrella? You know what I mean. I called it. There's something about her, isn't there?
My fiancée, for instance.
Your fiancé?
She was the daughter of my violin teacher, and 24 hours before the wedding she died of influenza.
I'm sorry.
Damn.
It just proves my contention that women are unreliable and not to be trusted.
Because she died of illness. Sure, that makes sense.
I've been living around Loch Ness all my life.
Oh my god, are we getting an Loch Ness monster? Because that would be amazing.
Stop it!
Holmes.
If we are to continue, if we are to find out what really happened to your husband, you cannot act the grief-stricken widow.
Yeah, but you could be a bit more considerate of her feelings, couldn't you?
I saw it. I saw it from the attic window. It's out there in the
Loch Ness monster.
Where's the telescope?
I mean, this could be my hand sticking out of the water.
What is it, dear? What's the matter?
Oh, it be.
Okay, she's clearly signaling the monks, isn't she? Yeah. See, called it.
What's that?
Is it Nessie? Where's Nessie? Show me Nessie. Yes.
Closer.
Is Nessie about to eat them? Oh, here we go. Yeah. Oh yeah, look at it.
There is no doubt that we are dealing with a mechanical monster. Not only
Oh,
is it
so Nessie isn't
natural heart, it
real.
also has
Disappointed. Why does it look like Holmes is about to meet some kind of cult? Are the monks in a cult? At this point, I wouldn't even be surprised. Mycroft.
Mr. Ashdown,
I think it's an experimental model operated by a crew of midgets.
So Nessie is a submarine
Batteries and uses
controlled by
canaries to
midgets.
detect escaping gas.
What?
Unique control.
your client isn't Madame Valadon.
Ah, I called it. She's a
It's the
spy.
Imperial German government. They were
Yes.
after the Belgian engineer.
Knew it.
Invention. I'm expecting a certain royal personage from Balmoral.
Just for the record, I absolutely love it when adaptations occasionally do that Holmes just gets it completely wrong. Because I think this is part of sort of this admiration and romantic idea we have of Holmes, that he's able to solve anything and he's able to solve any kind of problem. But occasionally he doesn't always get it right, or occasionally he has cases that he is unable to completely solve. And I love that when they just completely turn him and his ego on his head and say, yeah, you figured out some smart stuff, but in the end you didn't get it quite right. I like it when I do that. The Queen! She's arriving.
That's not quite the idea, ma'am. HMS Jonah is being commissioned as a warship.
A warship?
Oh, she's not amused by that.
Get rid of it. Scuttle it. The sooner the better.
All this work
And do not
for
concern
nothing.
yourself about that
If the
thing
Queen
which
says
was
it's done, it's done.
something
You have to dismantle all the
We shall
hard
write a
work.
very-
Mycroft, it seems we have both been undone by a woman.
Ha!
What a shame. All that superb...
Oh, Holmes is
engineering,
enjoying
all that
this.
cunning espionage. Fräulein Hoffmann's star.
Ah, she's been had.
You knew right from the beginning.
I'm pretty sure you had
You
him.
brought me to
I'm pretty sure you had him fooled for a good time.
Thank you.
Oh, don't thank me, thank my brother. It was his idea. Frankly, I think we're making a very poor
was getting
deal.
sentimental.
Much better than most operatives.
Aren't you going to finish your breakfast?
Oh, something happened. Did something happen to the lady? Aww. Oh, this reminds me of the ending of Scandal in Belgravia. Oh. Wow, this is depressing. That's sad. And kind of dark if you think about it. Oh. It's a surprisingly, down-to-earth, moody ending.
And we're back. Boy, this movie is a lot of fun. So, yeah, there were a whole bunch of things I did not remember about this film. And I can see why, or let's say I can see where Mark Gatiss and Stephen Moffat took their inspiration from when you see this film. But okay, one of the other. Where are we starting? How about the story? Let's start with the story. We have these two very separate storylines. They do sort of, kind of work together a little bit with like these allusions to how this Holmes understand women. Is he even really into women? What's his relationship with women? That's sort of a theme that runs through most of the movie, I think, and it starts with this sort of, it's almost like a prologue story that sets the mood and some of the themes for the major storyline that we get in the second half of this movie. And I think it's okay if you watch this for the first time. I think you might be a bit confused why you have these two very different storylines of it, with the first one being quite short compared to the second one. I think that's also due to the fact that I think they wanted to do this in a more episodic nature originally, with more than just two storylines, and it ended up just being these two stories. I think it would be interesting to see a more episodic movie with like several cases, and then it all sort of culminates in one big mystery at the very end. I think that would also be quite interesting. So the first storyline with the ballet dancer, it's mostly straight up humor, isn't it? But I think it's funny. I think it works well, especially since this is where we also get a lot of like the domestic stuff that goes on in Baker Street, how just day-to-day life, what it's like for Holmes and Watson, which, as I already said during the view montage, is so much fun to see. This is very much where the private life of Sherlock Holmes comes into play. And I think we need more of that. I thought this entire time watching this film, it would be so interesting to get an adaptation, to get a story where the mystery isn't actually the main focus, where, sure, you maybe have a case they work on, but it's more in the background. And it's more about, the private life between these two men, just what day-to-day life in Baker Street is like, what everyone's habits are, what Holmes does when he's not necessarily working on a case, just them sort of hanging out, having a talk, Holmes playing the violin, Watson is working maybe on a new manuscript, maybe Watson is working as a doctor while Holmes is doing his own thing. I think those are such wonderful moments that we see so rarely, I think, in many of the adaptations, where it's really just, we have to focus on the mystery, and this is where we sort of explore the dynamic between, and the chemistry between Holmes and Watson through the case they're working on. And I guess it sort of comes naturally from the short stories, where, of course, you have this focus on the mystery and you don't really get that many domestic moments. It's mostly just Watson saying or mentioning here and there what they're doing when they're not working on a case, or it's mostly these introductory lines that we get at the beginning of these short stories. But I love the focus on that. I think that's brilliant. And I think especially this first storyline explores this rather well. And I love this whole conversation we get where Holmes is like, Watson, what you write in your stories isn't even true. Because of you, I have to wear this ridiculous outfit, which would explain why he wears a deerstalker even though he's in the city, because he feels like he has to live up to this image Watson has conjured up for the public. Which again is something I can see the makers of BBC Sherlock picking up for their series, where Holmes starts wearing the deerstalker because people have become so attached to it, even though he isn't really into it at all. And I like that. I think that's rather clever. And then the whole business with the ballet dancer. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, ain't it? It's really just straight up comedic nonsense. And so Holmes can come up with this idea of, I'm just gonna tell her I'm gay to get out of the situation, and then Watson completely freaks out about it. But I think this sets up, as I already mentioned during the montage, I think it sets up quite an interesting theme throughout the entire film, where you question what Holmes's relationship with women is like, what his stand towards women is. Because he says to Watson, you make me a huge misogynist, which I'm not, I just don't trust women, which, in and of itself is just a really sexist statement. And he does still have these sexist leanings throughout the film, and you ask yourself how much is actually true. What are we seeing here? Is he really gay? Did he maybe have bad relationships with women in the past? Like he mentions to a lady that he was supposed to be engaged when he was young and supposed to marry, but then his fiance died, which is where his distrust of women sort of comes from, apparently. Which is a bit silly. But I think it hints at something in Holmes' past that I think is quite interesting. Naturally, I'm more someone who leans towards saying he's just not interested, because we all know or think Holmes is somewhere on the aromantic and or asexual spectrum, and he's just not interested. But in a way, I think it's still interesting to hint that maybe there's something going on, that there maybe is a bigger reason for why he treats women the way he treats them, or why he thinks about them the way he does. We get this very almost explicit hint at Holmes possibly being gay, which is very interesting because the movie leaves this unanswered. And I think that's brilliant. It would have even been, I think, more interesting if they had run with it a bit more throughout the second storyline, because I think this whole idea of him possibly being gay is sort of lost in the second half, in the second storyline, because it's more a focus on him and his relationship to that lady he's having, where at the end you're wondering maybe he liked her, maybe he didn't, we don't know. But it would have been interesting to maybe go a bit more with this idea, maybe he isn't into women because he's actually something else. So I think the movie then in the second half leans more into the mystery rather than this theme of Holmes and love, Holmes and women, Holmes and possibly being queer. But I think these first 30 minutes are very interesting because they hint at so many things that you were just left to ponder as the viewer. And then we'll move on to the second half with the whole Loch Ness spy German storyline, which is, you have to admit, it is ridiculous. Like, you can't tell me that you watch this film thinking this is a very serious mystery story that we're watching, because it's just not. Like, Mycroft is coming up with the Loch Ness monster and it's a submarine that's supposed to be a weapon against the Germans. Just no, it's ridiculous. But I like that Christopher Lee just did that. He just ran with it. And he makes for a nice microphone. But I think it is a solid enough mystery. It definitely is. The character of the lady, like von Hoffmann style, as we later find out, is I think you get pretty early on, I think, the idea that there's something wrong with her. Some things are a bit obvious, but then it completely sort of throws you for a loop with the whole Loch Ness monster thing, because you just don't see that coming. You just don't. And sort of like maybe a bit of a hint to like First World War stuff that's gonna come up in a couple of years. Since I think the story is set in 1888. So I like it. I think it works well enough. I think the second storyline, or maybe the movie in general, it feels a tad too long. I think like the film is about 2 hours long. I think that maybe could have reworked the second storyline a bit more. to make it shorter or more compact. And maybe this is also due to the fact that they intended to maybe put more storylines than just 2 in there. I don't know. But there are some good moments in there. I think Watson also has some very funny moments. He's sort of a comic relief character here and there, but I think he gets enough moments where he just gets to be Watson, where he can take care of the lady because he's a doctor, that sort of thing. They emphasize a bit too much that he's a ladies' man, which I know is a common joke for Watson in adaptations, because I think he does actually mention in one of the stories that he's had experience with women from over 3 continents or something, and you're thinking, shut up, you're gonna get married later. And they could have easily just done that, because it's 1888, Watson would have already been married, I think, at that point, but I guess he needs some comedic stuff there, even though I think Holmes is very funny in this movie. He has a bunch of really good one-liners that are absolutely hilarious. Which directly brings me to characterization. What did I think of Holmes and Watson and the portrayal of the actors? I thought rather good, especially for this kind of not quite serious story, which is supposed to be engaging and thrilling, but also funny at the same time. So I already let's continue with Watson, because I already sort of talked about him. He is sort of this comic relief character, especially in the first storyline, and he's mostly there to do make comments or make some weird discoveries or just straight up have laughing moments for the audience. He does get moments where he gets to be a doctor. He has some deduction moments, which I think is good when we get to see that Watson has learned something from Holmes over the years. I think that's good. I'm missing him in the climax of the story. I think I don't like it when the story is sort of separated and only focuses on Holmes, especially since we've spent so much time with the trio during the film. Then it's just Holmes discovering at the end what the whole thing is about, and Watson doesn't even get to be there and has no idea what's actually going on until the very, very end, which I think is a bit sad. I wanted him to perhaps be a bit more involved and have more of an actual necessary role within the mystery, where he does something or says something that is something that he specifically can do or knows or whatever, and it's needed in order to figure out what's actually going on. I wanted a bit more of him in there. But I do like the chemistry between Holmes and Watson. It's not the best Holmes-Watson chemistry we've seen on screen, I think, but I think it works well enough, especially in this first half of the movie, when we get to hang out with them just in Baker Street, and then Watson sort of has these moments where he asks maybe a bit more of a personal question. I think that works rather well. But I honestly can't really blame the movie that much. It does a very basic thing with Watson that we see in so many other adaptations. They don't make him too stupid, which I appreciate. They don't make him too stupid. They make him funny and a bit of an idiot, but he's not a straight up doofus who doesn't know anything. Because I absolutely hate that when adaptations do that, when Watson is really just the sidekick who doesn't know anything, who can't do anything useful. And you're sitting there, this man is a doctor. He's a super educated man. And then he becomes an absolute idiot, which makes no sense. So I appreciate whenever just adaptations get these basics right, that Watson is not stupid and is a doctor and knows how to do stuff. So I appreciate that. And I think the actor in general did a very good job with his character. And this brings me to Holmes. I think Robert Stephens is a very interesting Holmes. I like him a lot in that role, or at least it works for this kind of Holmes. Because, I don't know, there's just something about him. He's not as cold as we're used to from other Holmeses, for example, like Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock or something. This Holmes is not as cold. He does have his very inconsiderate moments, like when he, for example, screams at the lady. She's supposed to tell him what's going on, which honestly to me sometimes seemed a bit out of character, because they seem to go for a more, calm Holmes who's very understanding of what's going on, which is still very much in line with what we know from the canon, that Holmes isn't always this inconsiderate arsehole that constantly interrupts everyone and doesn't care about their feelings or anything like that. Holmes wasn't always like that in the stories, and he didn't always care about getting paid. He just wanted to take on the case because he thought it was interesting, or maybe because he just wanted to help someone. And I think they do get these sort of warmer moments of the character right. I like that. I like that they allow Holmes to be funny as well, because I think in the original stories, Holmes occasionally does have some very funny one-liners or comments where you're just thinking, he's just having way too much fun right now. And Holmes has so many one-liners. I already mentioned that. He is having so much fun. There's so many witty jokes and remarks in this film. In the dialogue, or just side remarks that you really have to pay attention to, that you catch them. Well, they're really funny, and a lot of them come from Holmes. I like what they're doing with Holmes, and I like that they're doing how sort of ambiguous it is. Like I already mentioned, that they leave it open for interpretation how you want to see this. If this is about Holmes trying to deal with his feelings for women, if this is about Holmes coming to the realization that he just can't be or doesn't want to be in a relationship ever like that, or maybe that Holmes is sort of kind of saying that he's gay, but Watson isn't really getting it. There are a lot of different things going on there, and I think you can tell that at the end he's very much upset about learning that Lady von Hofmannsthal has died. And again, I think here's this reference, like I already mentioned, to A Scandal in Belgravia, where we again have this moment where Irene dies at the very end, and Holmes is super upset about it, and everyone thinks Holmes is depressed because Irene has died, but then we actually find out that he saved her, which we don't get in the film. But I think it's interesting because I think that's a common thing they sort of play with characters like with Irene Adler or all the other female characters, that you question, was there ever a lady he was interested in? Was there someone he ever cared about? And I think that's interesting, especially if you think about that he says that he doesn't dislike women, he just distrusts them, which you could argue in this case gets very much confirmed, because the lady he's been hanging out with his entire time turns out to be the bad guy. And you can see how disappointed he is by that. And you could argue, did he know about this at some point, or did he not see it at all? And that's why he is so depressed by the end of the film, because he's really come to appreciate this lady and maybe even really like her to a certain degree. And then you'll find out she's not only the bad guy, but then she's died as well. And he's just absolutely depressed because of it. I think you could have a lot of fun with different kinds of readings of the Holmes character in this film. And coming back to the BBC series, you can definitely tell where all the influences of this film come from if you think about these sort of more domestic moments between Holmes and Watson, this sort of ambiguity about Holmes' relationship to women and with sexuality in general, that, you know, there are these rumors coming up that they might be gay, and Watson is constantly denying it. Then the Irene character, I think, in the BBC series is in a way similar to Lady von Hofmannsthal that we see here in this film. You can definitely see where the influences are coming from. Whether you take this as a good or a bad thing is up to you. I was just surprised how many similarities I actually saw or recognized while watching the film, just not only from like storylines, but also regarding characterization and those sorts of things. So this has been a fun adaptation. I think it's definitely one of the better adaptations. It's definitely a bit more, it feels more casual. It doesn't feel entirely quote unquote mainstream. It doesn't feel like it's 100% classic Holmes adaptation that you just get everywhere. It doesn't, because it does try to go more for this private life feeling, to go more for an exploration of the characters and certain themes surrounding the personal, the private life and the very person of Sherlock Holmes. It sort of loses it a bit, I think, in the second half with the second storyline, because I think it goes too much into the classic mystery and goes too far away from we want to explore the personal life of Sherlock Holmes. and his emotions and feelings and relationships. I think they could have run a bit more with that. I do like the low-key comedic aspect we get in the film, because it's not too much. The film isn't a comedy in and of itself. I think it's kind of hard to pin down. You can have a lot of fun with this film. There are many funny moments, I think, in there. And especially if you compare this to other makers of other adaptations, like the BBC series, other people who've taken this maybe as an inspiration. You can definitely see some influences here and there. And I think they've done a good job, and I like the actors portraying the characters. Watson, maybe not as much as Holmes, but I think they're doing some interesting things with the character in here. There are some neat little details and callbacks to the canon, like the drug habits of Holmes, that sort of thing. And I like that they don't forget about this kind of stuff. They're still running with some cliches, but I like that they're turning them on their head. So there's a lot to like here, and I had a lot of fun with this film. So this is it for The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. What are your thoughts on this film? Have you recently seen it? Do you know the adaptation, or have you heard about it for the first time? Do tell me down in the comments below what your thoughts are on the story, the characters, the influences you maybe see from it in other adaptations, because I think there's a lot to like here and a lot to talk about with The Private Life of Sherlock Holmes. So do tell me down in the comments below what your thoughts are. I would love to read them. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see all of you next time. Goodbye.